All right, Coach. How you doing?
Great.
What are you most excited about, looking forward to with fall ball? Largely new group. What are some of your keys right now?
Just ready for them to compete and play against each other. There's jobs on the line, so I think they're anxious, anticipating competition as opposed to just drill work. So I'm anxious to see how they respond to it. You know, we have a lot of freshmen on the pitching staff. You know, that'll get challenged because we got some guys that can swing the bat a little bit. So you know, we'll see where they stand real quick.
In year 3, where is the program from a cultural standpoint? As you, when you came in, your expectations, how do they measure up now?
Better and better each year. The guys are buying into you know, the work ethic that it takes, and you know, the daily grind of doing what it takes to be good. So from that standpoint, I couldn't be happier. Guys are working hard and taking things, you know, every rep that it matters, that it's, you know, they're taking it with intention and what they're doing. So I think it's a big key of what we're trying to do is, you know, we can go out and take 1,000,000 reps, but if it has zero intent with it, then it's wasted. So they're going out with a different focus. The guys that were here last year have certainly a different focus in their eyes than they did a year ago.
You talked about those guys from last year. You bring back a lot of big bats from last year, but maybe the biggest one, Luke Keishel, moved on to the MLB. Who do you foresee as like stepping into that role, maybe the premier offensive player?
You know, that's the good thing. As of right now, I feel like we got 13 or 14 strong, solid bats right now, to where there's going to be a fight at the bat rack a little bit, and we got some depth, which is nice. So there'll be some you know, some guys that better not get too comfy with their jobs. So we have a lot of guys that can swing the bat this year, which I'm excited about. A couple freshmen that have come in and swung the bats well. So I'm anxious to see how they respond in game situations, which will be good. But you know, we do have some veteran guys, and that's going to be the strength of our team is the veteran position players. And you know, they're going to be expected to hold down the fort and do things the right way.
How do you?
With Luke Keishel and Luke Hill moved on, what do you expect to see up the middle of this?
Well, we'll have a new middle, obviously, and you know, there's a couple freshmen fighting for those spots. Ethan Mendoza and Jax Ryan and Ryan Crapel as well is in the mix, and then we brought in a couple of older guys. Mario Demira is a lot of experience there in the middle, primarily second base, and then Steven Ondina we got you know, late in the transfer portal, but is a kid from Puerto Rico that has a different intent in his eyes, you know, with his intensity, that he's been outstanding so far. So he's making some plays that I haven't seen made here in a couple of years. So it's fun to watch him play. He just has to slow it down at times. He's pretty quick twitch, but he's definitely capable of playing shortstop very well.
How do you feel about your offensive depth in comparison to last year?
A lot deeper. I think you know, I think from where I, you know, penciled it out on paper, obviously, but there's no easy outs that 1 through 9, and then we're going to have a handful of guys on the bench that situationally can come in and do some damage off the bench too, which we didn't have, I don't think, a year ago. So like I said, there's going to be a lot of guys fighting for playing time, a lot of guys that are capable of starting. So that's a good problem to have.
With a third of that freshman recruiting class being from in-state, how crucial was it to maintain that in-state talent?
I think you know, with where we've been the last couple of years with not having any freshman arms, I mean, it was very important to. I mean, it's tough to build when we don't have any freshman arms for 2 years in a row. And hey, that's just part of what we got dealt, and that what we have to adjust with. But we wanted to make sure we didn't have that mistake again, and so we have a lot of them coming in, and we have a lot of left-handers coming in, which excites me too. But a strong contingent of local kids that are here, and very talented local kids too. So I'm anxious to see how they perform, and you know, early indications there's some guys that are, again, we haven't seen stuff like that since I've been here, so I'm excited about it.
you kind of spoke about at the end of last season getting to building the culture and finally kind of getting to some of those spots you were looking for. How do you continue to build that culture with it's over 30 Division I transfers? How do you kind of just continue to build that with the new group of guys?
I mean, that's the challenge of the landscape we're in now is with the transfer portal and different guys coming in. I've always said from day one, just kind of looking at the scenario that we inherited, that it was going to take, probably this is going to be the year where hopefully we have the kind of the great reset on the mound, and hopefully we don't have to go out and get a bunch of transfer portal guys moving forward. With building with our own position players and our own freshman arms that we can start building with this year. That excites me because I don't want to have to live in the portal every year. That's a nightmare. For me, it's that'll be nice, but just those guys that have come in early. A lot of those freshmen have come in early and came in great shape. And they understand that, hey man, if you're the guy, you win the job, you win the job. So clearly I've made it ultra clear I'm not afraid to start freshmen. So that'll remain the same this year. If they win the job, then they'll play.
With so many newcomers, how important do guys like Campos and Tobias, who have been here for now 3 years, become to kind of lead by example and show what the ASU culture is all about?
Yeah, it's time for them to step up and be a little bit more vocal than they have in the past, and they understand that, and they're doing a great job so far this fall. They're them and the guys that were here last year, Contradas, Jackson, Nick McLean, even those guys that have been here a couple years now, understand what I expect and understand what the coaching staff expects, and they've done a great job taking the reins and showing some of the younger guys and the new guys that this is how we do it here. So, and it's but part of that too, the guys that we brought in from the transfer portal have been guys that we vetted heavily and did a lot of background work on, and so they fit in pretty well.
Coach, having pretty much your entire coaching staff drafted this past offseason, how much did that kind of surprise you? How much did it throw a wrench kind of in your offseason plans?
I'd be lying if I sat here and said I was expecting all 7 draft eligible arms to get drafted and sign. That was obviously, I guess we're doing something right from that standpoint, which makes me happy, and I'm happy for them. To get the opportunity to go on and play. That's a lot of their dreams and aspirations were to do that, and that's something that ASU offers that a lot of other schools can. Is hey, we're exposure here is like nowhere else. We got more scouts here in our stands than anywhere in the country, and it just takes one to like you. And a lot of those guys that's got the opportunity to do it. So I'm very happy for them. On the flip side of the coin, it's like, well, wow, now we're back to the drawing board with with a bunch of new guys again. And so Sammy has this work cut out for him again for the 3rd year in a row on dealing with brand new guys, for the 3rd year in a row. But this, like I said, this year excites me a little bit for him, and that we do have a lot of freshmen that we can actually start building with, from one year to the next, actually have a carryover so he can work with guys more than 1 year before they move on. So anyway, that part of it, I know he's excited about, I'm excited about, but the scary part is a lot of freshmen. So, but we'll adjust, and I think we'll be just fine.
Which one of them kind of stood out so far, the freshman arms that you're hoping to get a good chunk of innings this year?
I think just in the bullpens, we've had some live ABs here a little bit, but the bullpens, Corona product, Cole Carlone has stood out pretty well. Thomas Burns, kid from Wisconsin, has thrown the ball really well. Braden Barnes has thrown it well, and Wyatt Halverson. There's some freshman arms in there that are, again, something we haven't had in a while, or at least since I've been here, we haven't had freshman arms. So I'm excited about them, and we'll see where they take us, and where if they can slow it down once we start playing games and keep their composure. That type of stuff is all the unknown stuff when you don't know until you get into game situations, but certainly promising from the eye standpoint.
With all those freshman arms, obviously a lot of them are going to be starting and making appearances right away. How important is it to make sure they're prepared for that in the fall before they kind of jump right into it in the spring?
No, and that's what makes the fall critical and crucial for us. With this many young guys, especially on the mound, I'm not so much worried about the offensive standpoint, but on the mound, making sure that they're going to get battle tested because of the offensive players that we have, and they aren't going to be able to make mistakes and get away with it too often. So that's good. We'll battle test them, we'll throw them right in the fire and see how they respond, and there'll be some that can handle it, some that can't, and that's what's the important part of the fall. So I'm anxious to get the games underway starting tomorrow, and we'll see where we're at here in a few weeks.
On the aspect of development, with the addition of Mike Goff, a guy who you're familiar with and had influence on your playing career, what kind of influence and what does he bring to the table in developing these players with your staff?
Well, Goffey is, he's the guy that obviously I look up to and admire, in the fact that he taught me how to be a big leaguer. So if he can make me a big leaguer, then he can make these guys, because I certainly wasn't anything special. So that's why I hired him. It's like I know firsthand what kind of teacher and what kind of coach he is. So when I got the opportunity to take this job, he was my first call, because I know what kind of coach he is and how he relates to players, and how he just flat out gets them better. So for our infielders, I don't think they quite understand what the luxury of that they have, that they're working with a lot of times. Just someone with that knowledge and pedigree and experience, and not only at the college level but the pro level. That's what we can offer at ASU, which is great.
You've been in pennant races before as a player. Last year was your real first one as a coach, and obviously towards the end of the season it didn't end the way you wanted to. What are some lessons you can take from what you remember as a player into as a coach in a pennant race?
Well, obviously, last year didn't end the way we wanted it to. Be the first to admit that we struggled a little bit down the stretch, but on the same token, you use that as motivation. We got plenty of motivation. That's not going to be a shortage of that around here, and you need to try to preach it to, again, with a relatively young lineup last year, with a lot of freshmen, that you got to finish the job, guys. You got to finish it. Don't leave it to chance, because God knows what's going to happen in the selection committee, and we all saw it. So it's a good reminder that you can't leave it to chance, and you got to finish the job. We were rolling there for a good part of that year, and just faltered down the stretch a little bit, which cost us. But it carries over to this year and everything we're doing. Conditioning, doing the drill work, finishing the last play, doing everything the right way. Hopefully that's a good learning tool for not only the players, but for me as a coach and the coaching staff as well, to finish the job, man. We got to finish it and move forward. So our aspirations are not to just get into the tournament. We want to put another banner on the wall, and we know the challenge that's going to be. So we got to get better.
For the new players that have joined the program this year, how do you get them to use that as motivation, because they didn't experience that last season?
Oh, we've already told them and informed them what how that whole process went. So they got two choices: get on board, or you get run over, basically, or someone else is going to take their job and is more passionate about it. So but I think a lot of these guys that we brought in are know the history of ASU. They're excited to be here, and we wouldn't bring them here if we weren't anticipating them being a big piece of what we're doing.
You mentioned Mario Demera's in the mix up the middle. Played a lot of third base last year too. Is Newton sort of still just returning to that position per usual, or are you looking to maybe incorporate him up the middle potentially moving forward too?
New is it's nice to have him at third. He's just so athletic over there, and I big part of me believes that third base might be even more important at the college level than second base. But I am toying around with having him take a few reps at second, as well as, and even short as well. So he's an athletic kid that is able to do that. I feel very confident with him at third base. If we have to, Kevin Carstetter has done an outstanding job, and junior college kid from Florida has come in and has done an outstanding job at third base as well to give us depth there. He also has the ability to play second. So, again, I have flexibility, which is nice. Whoever's swinging the bat well, we can move one of those guys to second, or whatever we need to do to get their bats in the lineup. So we have some depth, which is nice.
Based off of last year's performances from Isaiah Jackson and Nick McClain, it feels like they've got themselves some pretty solid spots out in the outfield. How do you anticipate the competition for the third outfield spot playing out?
Intense, and Nick and Jax have done a phenomenal job last year, and but again, there's guys that are capable of playing out there. Kian Vu is returning in great shape, had a good summer. Brandon Compton had a phenomenal summer in the Northwoods and is itching for a bat somewhere. So he's he plays pepper with the batter's eye on a daily basis. You're just like, man, if he can carry this over in the game, that's gonna be tough to keep that bat out of the lineup. You know, Harris Williams has come in from USF, who's a phenomenal player. Bennett Fryman's a freshman that's come in, a two-way guy that is itching for playing time. So, you know, there's a lot of options out there, which is good. You know, it's good to have. So it'll be a dogfight for all those spots, really. So.
You mentioned the summer ball performances. Are there any other specific guys that you thought really took a big step, either that are coming into the program or were previously with the program and are returning?
You know, a lot of guys, you know, Compton stands out as a guy that just had a phenomenal summer. I think he might have set records up there for RBIs in the summer with, I think, mid to upper 70 RBIs in a summer. That's pretty impressive for a pitcher's league for the most part, and historically. But he did phenomenal there. You know, from the pitching standpoint, again, the only guy returning is Humphreys. So he went and got some innings this summer and you know, did just fine up there. And so we're anxious to see what he brings as kind of the lone, him and Steven Hernandez being the lone returners. Steven didn't pitch last year for us. So, you know, anxious to see what those two guys bring. As far as that, Kean Boo had a nice summer as well. New had to finish strong there in the Cape, you know, at the second half of the year. Carstetter went up to the Cape late in the year and had a decent few weeks there. So yeah, there's a lot to be excited about.
Does that help you recruit at all, going out to see a lot of those guys playing summer ball?
From what standpoint? From
being able to go out and visit them and watch them play a little bit in the summer months.
Well, it's turned into, you got to defend your own guys, you know, because God knows there's coaches out there that are trolling and trying to steal players. So, you know, we got to defend our players and get out there and watch them and, you know, be like a bulldog on a bone and not let anybody close to them. But that's the landscape we're in, unfortunately. But it is what it is, and you know, we're at the point where, for the most part, we trust our guys to go out and hey man, if you don't want to be at ASU, then you're crazy in my mind. So, but most of them obviously love being here.
Having a guy like Josiah Cromwick behind the dish to kind of complement with Ryan Campos, how does that kind of free up him, Campos, and being able to, you know, as he did last year, playing in a variety of positions?
Well, I think again, just adding depth and experience depth as well. He comes down from Oregon last year, and you know, gives us another piece behind the plate that can free up Campy to play, you know, potentially left field if we need to, and you know, give Campy a breather back there, and so he doesn't have to catch every day. Trey Newman has come back from an injury last year that, you know, nobody knew about really. Ended up having surgery this off season on his hip. Looks absolutely phenomenal behind the plate, and is really stepping up. So he'll be fighting for playing time back there as well. Brody Briggs is a freshman coming in from Oklahoma that is a tough kid. You don't want to get in a bar brawl with that kid. He's a tough one, and pretty good defensively behind the plate. Few things to work on offensively still, but you know, that's the exciting part, is we're starting to finally get a foundation and some depth where we can build with.
With the new third coaching edition of Anthony Gillers and just that whole position as a whole for the entire NCAA, how does that help your staff and just being able to have that third man on the ground?
It's huge. Just a third recruiter, somebody with the knowledge that Gilly has, is, you know, a national champion multiple times at Central. Good knowledge of the local area, good relationship with the local coaches that we have. You know, been a head coach himself for a decade or better at least, and you know, that'll help me as well, you know, with some things. He has new ideas that you know, quite honestly I hadn't thought of at times, and it's like, it's good to have fresh and new ideas coming into things to keep practice plans moving and keep things intense. And he's a huge part of our staff, and he's out recruiting today, but I mean, that's what was needed in our sport, is being able to have that extra paid spot so he can go out and recruit. We run the scrimmages here. He'll be back on Sunday to catch that scrimmage, and it just frees us up from a coaching staff standpoint to be more flexible, and I have no problem turning over, you know, catchers, outfielders, base running to him, because he's good at what he does. So and so for me, it's more of a position that I aspired to be in, where I can go roam and see everybody versus having to work with one specific group. So that frees me up a lot, which is very helpful.
You talked about he's a national champion at the JUCO level, and you already got some help with Matt Wilkinson before he got drafted. Do you think that he can continue to really bring in a lot of guys from Central Arizona and JUCO in general?
I think so. I think he knows what works and what doesn't. And I think when you're at that level of a junior college for that many years, and really, it's been in the national championship for the last 5 years, I mean, that's pretty impressive. So he knows what players work, and he knows what players have gone on to D1 level and who's had success and who doesn't. What plays at this level, what doesn't quite work at this level, and don't be fooled by the eye test when you go see this kid. It's not all there. So he adds definitely a nice piece, a nice element to our recruiting from that standpoint. We've already gotten a kid from Central, Ryan Spolero, on board, who's got an electric arm that is turning out to be pretty dang good. So excited about him for next year, obviously, but having that pipeline is important for us.
You mentioned bringing in a lot of freshmen and younger arms on the mound, but what does it mean to you to have a guy like Tyler Meer back after out last season? What are you expecting to see from him?
Tyler's obviously, we're very hopeful that he returns. He had a tough surgery, and he's worked his absolute fanny off on trying to get back healthy, and it's progressing very well. So we're very anxious and cautiously optimistic with him. If we can add him to a rotation that we already have, again, we have good problems. To where that'd be huge. It'd be a huge boost for our pitching staff, and be able to put other guys in different spots. We all know Tyler is a phenomenal pitcher, and knows what he's doing on the bump. So to get him healthy, I'm again very cautiously optimistic with them. Still has a little progression, little ways to go with that, but man, if we can get him healthy and back to form, we'll be in good shape.
So he may not be able for the opener, and it might be something where he's added in at some point throughout the season.
I'm pretty confident that we will know one way or another before then. I mean, he's either going to be full go, throttle down, ready to take on a weekend role or a starting role, or the surgery didn't work. One of the two. So I think, again, we're over that hump. I think the early part of it, to where if it didn't hold, there would have been a major setback, I think, by now. So again, fingers crossed. We're very optimistic on where he stands at this point, and with his work ethic and diligence on the rehab. I feel pretty good about him hopefully returning into a game or two this fall, and then being ready to ramp up, throughout the winter and getting ready for the season.
Thanks, Coach.